Okay, so we are recording now. So welcome to our May Homemaker Leader lesson. I know that we all loved Lynn's lesson last month. She traveled around to each county and talked a little bit about the health benefits of gardening outdoors. So we're kind of continuing on the health benefit trajectory today. Our lesson is called Sensational Salads, and this is actually one of our state-supported lessons. And so this is one that homemakers all around the state might be learning sometime over the course of the next couple of years. So like I said, welcome. My name is Kelly Burgess. Fun fact, this is actually my first homemaker lesson that I'm teaching as an agent. If you haven't had the chance to meet me yet, I started in July of 2019, and the lesson I was scheduled for that year was later in the year. And then COVID happened. So I'm really excited to get to be doing this first lesson with all of you ladies today. And I hope that this is a fun one that you can take back and share with your club. A little bit more about me. I'm also a registered dietitian. That's what I went to school for. And then I completed the extra requirements for that. So anytime I get to talk about food is always a good day for me. So I'm excited to get to present this lesson to you all today. I did want to take just a couple minutes and talk about the sheets that hopefully you have in front of you, whether it's in your counties or maybe your agents have already distributed them, maybe they had them out on the tables today. The first one is the Sensational Salads publication. I know that it's a little bit far away for you to see, but this one is several pages, and this covers the majority of the information. So if you're leading this lesson with your club, this is a good point of reference to kind of read through ahead of time. I'll touch on most of the main points today. There's also another publication that's called Sensational Salads Vinaigrette Dressing, and it has a couple of recipes for salad dressings on it. So this is a fun activity that you can do at home or encourage your members to do. There's also one that's called Common Salad Greens. So you should have this one in front of you. It's a front, back, and another front. And it goes over the different types of lettuces, cabbages. And so as you can see, we have quite the array of greens in front of us today. So we'll be touching on just a few that are included in that publication. And then finally, this is actually a resource that I created called Sensational Salads at Home Lesson Activity. So unfortunately, right now, we're not able to do sampling and potlucks and big group things together. But I wanted to make this still be an activity that you could do at home or maybe with your club in a different way. So I made kind of a grid, and I hope that this can be like a mix and match type of resource for you. So you can see the different categories and choose something from each category as you build your salad. So we'll dive in throughout. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to what resources you have in front of you. All right, if everybody is doing good so far, I will go ahead and share my screen. I do have a presentation before we get started with what we have in front of us. And I'm gonna do slideshow. And are y'all seeing the slideshow is the big screen? Is this the main thing that y'all? Okay, perfect. And I apologize. Y'all aren't going to be able to see this, but most of the information is in this publication, and I can print it off for you afterwards if you want. But I'll talk through everything. Okay, so our introduction. As we all know, salads are a great, healthy food that we can incorporate into our diet. They're helpful for maintaining a healthy weight. So that's one reason why people might be interested in eating salads. But I also wanted to bring it up that now is the perfect time of year to be experimenting with different salads and different greens. So our greens are mostly cool season crops, so they should be available. I know that our Allen County Farmers Market is opening here and actually next weekend. So hopefully there'll be several vendors who have a variety this weekend. Okay, thank you. There should be several vendors that have a variety of greens available. So maybe today's lesson will give you some ideas of some new things that you can look for at your local farmers market. I also want to talk a little bit about salad kits. I'm sure most of y'all have seen those in the grocery store, like a pre-packaged kit, and they are super convenient to use, but they might not be the most cost effective. But can anybody think of a time when maybe you would want to try a salad kit? Has anybody tried one before? You can unmute or type in.
Kelly, do you know how to turn on your closed caption?
Oh, okay. Let me try and do that. Can you tell me where I can find that control? Let's see. Is it annotate? Or Jamie, do you know how to find the closed caption? Oh, live transcript, is that it?
Maybe.
Enable auto transcription?
If you don't know how, go ahead. I'll see if I can find it.
Okay.
There you go. It's on. Great.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So anyways, for prepackaged salad kits, maybe you want to try something that's a different flavor that you haven't had before. Like I saw one, I did a little shopping the other day just to kind of see what was available. And there was one that was like an Asian sesame flavor. And I thought, well, that's not something that I would normally try, but maybe if you just wanted to try it for the first time just to see before you spent a lot of money on other ingredients, that could be a time that a prepackaged salad kit might be helpful. Or if you're busy and you need to pack a lunch on the go, that could be a time to use a prepackaged kit. But of course, we always like to encourage the economical choice, which is going to be doing it yourself. So hopefully this lesson will give you some ideas about how to do that. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next slide. And our next slide talks about the garden salad. So y'all can see, Allen County ladies, you can see in your publication, the garden salad is it's the most common type of salad. So we think of greens, maybe tomatoes, cucumbers, carrots, just your basic type of salad. But I also wanted to point out that there's other things that we tend to call salads too. Things like potato salad or the cucumber, tomato, and onion salad, kind of like the marinated that we make in the summer. There's chicken salad or tuna salad, and sometimes we make a chicken salad and put the chicken salad on a salad. So today we're mostly going to be talking about different variations of those greens-based salads that we think of as being the most common. So while we're talking about the greens, let's go ahead and give a little bit of information about their nutritional value. So if you're not convinced on eating salads, maybe the nutrition, learning about that will be an incentive for you to try incorporating salads into your diet sometimes. So a serving size of greens is about 2 cups. So that's actually quite a large serving size for only 30 calories. So using the greens as your base that's a reason why we said that it's great for weight control, because you're filling yourself up, you're getting lots of fiber, that feeling of fullness in your stomach. So you get to eat a lot of volume and get a lot of nutrition, but for little calories. Greens are also rich in vitamin A, which is the vitamin we typically think about for eye health and vision. They're also rich in vitamin C, which is an antioxidant and can help boost your immune system or strengthen your immune system. We also think of them as having lots of vitamin K, which if you have any experience with, blood pressure medicine, blood clots, vitamin K might kind of raise a little red flag. And so I wanted to touch on that a little bit. Of course, I would recommend you to consult your doctor or your physician if you're on those blood thinner type medications. But vitamin K, it's most important to keep it consistent. So it's not that you can never have vitamin K, but it's just that you don't want to never eat a lot of greens and then all of a sudden one day decide to have salad 3 times a day. That might be a little bit of a problem. So if you're not used to eating foods that are rich in vitamin K and you are on those blood thinner medications, kind of gradually introducing them slowly and then keeping it consistent in your diet is a great way to still get it without having those consequences. We don't typically think of greens as having a lot of calcium, but they actually do, which of course supports our bone health. They have fiber, as I mentioned, which can help lower our cholesterol levels. I like to think of fiber as a little broom. It goes through your digestive system and grabs all of those fats that are floating around in your arteries, and it kind of just sweeps it out and takes it with it. So, and then folate. So we think of folate typically with pregnant women and spinal cord development for babies. Folate, I believe it's a B vitamin. Yes. So just a few more things before I have a quick demonstration for y'all. How do we select greens? So of course, we all know not to look for things that are wilted or that seem like they've sat around a little bit too long. But something that I recently learned is for our head lettuces or our cabbages, we want to select something that's heavy for its size. So you want to be kind of surprised when you pick it up that it's a little bit heavier than what you thought it was. What that indicates is that it has a lot of moisture in it. So when I was trying to think about how to explain this, I thought, if you have a bag of potting soil and the soil is wet, that bag of potting soil is going to be a lot heavier than if all the soil inside was dry. And it's kind of the same with our head greens. So the heavier it is, the more moisture it has and the fresher. Yes, even head lettuce, like iceberg or those types of lettuces. Of course, we want to look at the tips of the lettuce. That kind of is normally the place where they'll start to spoil first around those edges. So we want to make sure that those are just as crisp looking as all the rest of the leaf is. Okay, so how can we prepare our lettuce is our next thing. We want to make sure that we handle it with care. So I guess I can't really see a show of hands, but just think about how many people cut up lettuce. Have you cut up lettuce with a knife for a salad? I have a couple people nodding and a couple people shaking here in my audience. Yeah, sometimes. Okay, so a lot of people, of course, it's really fast. And sometimes I'm guilty of doing it too if I'm cutting up lettuce and I'm going to eat it right away. But really when we cut lettuce with a knife, it kind of bruises the leaves. So it stays fresher and more of its normal shape and texture if we rip it gently with our hands. So that's just one tip that I wanted to give. Of course, we want to wash all of our greens before we eat them. That's an important food safety step. And it's good to use friction. So that means just kind of rubbing the leaf off with your hands to get off any dirt or grit. Some greens are more, it's more noticeable that it's on there than others, but any kind of green, we definitely want to wash it off. If you think about it, it grows close to the ground. So there's always a chance that it could have, a spray or a chemical or dirt that's gotten up on the leaves. Oh, okay. Okay, so we had a comment here in Allen County that somebody soaks it with salt or tries baking soda. I've never actually heard of that. The salt, I think that would be okay as long as you would rinse it off afterwards. But yeah, so that's the main notes on preparing. Like I said, you do have more information in your publication, but I don't want to take up too much time for this part. And then storing. So the only thing about greens that I don't like is they tend to go bad pretty quickly. If you're anything like me, I live by myself, or you might have just two people living in your household. And sometimes it's really hard to eat a whole bunch, literally a bunch of spinach or lettuce before it goes bad. So a few ways that we can keep it fresh longer is by storing it correctly. So we always want to keep our greens in the crisper drawer of our refrigerator. That tends to be the coldest part, and we want to keep them in a plastic bag. I like to go ahead and put my greens in, say, like a gallon baggie, put paper towels in between them, and as that moisture releases from the greens, it keeps them crispy and fresh for a lot longer than if you just leave it in the bag that it comes in from the store. Sometimes even at the farmer's market, you can ask the vendor, if you're buying your greens from them, how they best like to store it. And they might have some helpful tips for whatever that certain kind of lettuce is as well. Okay, so now for the fun part, let's look at some lettuce. I'm going to stop my screen share for now, and hopefully y'all are back to seeing me a little bit bigger. Okay, I see that Janie said a few minutes ago that they lost sound in Hart County. Do y'all have it back? Okay, just let me know in the chat box if you get your sound back, hopefully. Okay, yes, awesome. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing out on anybody. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to pin my video just in case it records it differently so that you can see. So I have a lot of lettuce out here in front of me. I kind of wanted to go little by little, so you can pull out that Salad Greens publication if you want to follow along. But I'll be talking a little bit about what makes each one different and unique. So I'm just going to go my right to left. So I wanted to start with arugula. I don't know who has seen arugula before. It was probably going to be hard to see on the screen, but these are very small leaves. They kind of look like the leaves of a plant or a weed a little bit, and it tends to have kind of a peppery taste. So it's a little bit, it's not sweet. It's a little bit of a bolder taste. It might go good with some kind of lemony type of vinaigrette. It is a more tender green. So we'll talk about pairing dressings and greens a little bit later on. But the arugula is one that you'll see a lot of times mixed in with other lettuces. So if you see something like a spring mix, it might have some leaf lettuce, it might have some spinach, it might have some arugula, all kind of mixed in together. Our next is cabbage. So I ripped off a couple leaves of the larger head of cabbage that I had out earlier. But cabbage is not something that people always think about eating raw. I know a lot of people, I love cooked cabbage. So that's always a tasty option, but you can also have it raw. So I like to recommend it for someone, if you like iceberg lettuce. A lot of people say, well, I only eat iceberg lettuce. Cabbage is going to offer a better nutritional package than the iceberg lettuce, but it still gives that crunch. So you can chop it up in smaller pieces or rip it up in smaller pieces. This might be one that you could actually cut with a knife. And that gives that crunch to your salad, but for a little bit more nutrition than that typical iceberg lettuce. So there's cabbage. Next, I wanted to talk about kale. So I'm going to touch on this one a little bit now, but then I'll come back to it later. So kale we see with these curly green edges. It tends to be one of the stronger greens. It's a little bit woodier. I feel like woody is a good word to describe kale. It's definitely a little bit more tough at surface value. So a lot of people will choose to put kale in soups because it softens it up a lot, or you can put it in other things. You might choose to mix it into a lasagna or something like that. If it's cooked, it makes it a little bit softer. So I'll give you a tip in just a few minutes for how I like to eat kale in my salads. That I used to not like kale at all, but this makes it a lot better. Okay, we'll move on to romaine lettuce. This is, let me get a good leaf here. So romaine lettuce comes in a larger head. Let me see if I can pick this one up without making a huge mess. Okay, so you'll see romaine comes in a head as well. It's kind of taller and straighter. I think of it in like a V shape, where the other heads, we had a couple of people say it's their favorite. So this romaine lettuce is typically what's in a Caesar salad. So if you go to a restaurant and order a Caesar salad, it's usually going to be romaine lettuce. It's a firmer lettuce as well. I laugh at my dad because romaine is his favorite lettuce, because he says, I don't like wimpy lettuce. So whatever wimpy lettuce means to you, romaine is definitely not wimpy. But I think it's just that it doesn't get soggy easily. And it is one that will store longer in your refrigerator as well. So romaine is going to keep a little bit longer. So if you do want something that you need to last for a little bit, romaine is a good choice for that. Yes. So there is that crunchy part on romaine that some people like it and some people don't. You can keep it or you can toss it. That rib is what she's talking about, that center, this center part of the romaine. It is crunchy. I kind of like it. I usually leave it, but you can also cut out that part too. Okay, we'll move on to spinach since I've moved these spinach leaves. These are pretty big spinach leaves. I don't know if anyone has seen these before. I feel like we're mostly used to seeing the baby spinach that's in the bags, that you can get, and it's the small leaves. You don't even really have to take the stems off. It's super convenient. But I just chose to get this bigger spinach today. You might see more like this at your farmer's market. For this, you usually would remove this lower stem part and just eat the leaf. But I love spinach for in smoothies, especially. That's my favorite thing to do with spinach. Yes. So you don't really taste it at all. It'll give it a vibrant green color, but you're not going to taste that spinach as much. It has a really mild flavor. It's also great for cooking. You can cook spinach in soups or in other dishes. Italian dishes. You can mix it in with spaghetti, pasta. It wilts. You can put it in omelets. There's a lot you can do with spinach. Okay, yeah, pizza. It's a great pizza topping. So one last type before we move on is our leaf lettuces. So I have already ripped this up a little bit, but this is a red leaf lettuce. You'll kind of notice that it has that coloring on the top of the leaf, that purpley red color. So there's also green leaf that is shaped the same way. It's kind of a medium texture. It's not super soft, but it will wilt a little bit easier than some of our other ones. So red and green leaf lettuce are kind of considered your spring greens. And we'll actually be using those in a salad that we'll be making in just a little while. So I mentioned that I was going to do something about kale. So I'm going to go ahead and move this to the front and center. So this is something that everyone always loves to laugh at me about, but I promise this will change your life. So if y'all want to unmute or put in the chat box, does anybody normally eat kale in salads? A couple people? Okay, salads, vegetable soup. So I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of kale in salads. So I had a friend one time tell me, she said, well, Kelly, you need to massage your kale. I said, what? I said, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard of. She said, no, you got to massage the kale. I said, okay, well, you got to show me what this is or tell me about this. So I'm going to demonstrate how to massage your kale, and I'll explain a little bit about what happens in the kale. So maybe you're thinking, I'm the one that needs a massage. I don't want the kale. I don't need to give the kale a massage. So I'm just going to put on gloves because I'll be working with my hands. But all you need to do this, I've already prepared this, ripped it up into smaller pieces like what you would put in a salad. So I've used several leaves here in this larger bowl, and I just have a little bit of olive oil. This is not something that you have to measure. You can just use a little bit, probably two teaspoons, less than a tablespoon for this big bowl is plenty. So I'm going to dump my olive oil over the kale. And then I'm also going to put just a little bit of salt. This is just regular table salt. You can use sea salt. You could use the Himalayan pink salt, whatever kind of salt you like, and just sprinkle a little bit. Once again, there's not really a measurement. It's just a little bit of graininess to kind of work with the leaves. So now that we've put our oil and our salt, it's time to massage the kale. So it's just like what you think it is. You just get your hands in the bowl and kind of knead it, like kind of how you would knead bread dough, back and forth a little bit. When you do this, you'll notice a few changes start to happen in the leaves. So as I keep going, I'll explain what's happening. So not to be too sciencey, but if you remember anything about elementary science, plants have a kind of cell it has a cell wall. So plants have a hard, fibrous structure outside each cell. So that's what makes it rigid. That's what gives our plants their structure. And so by massaging the kale, what we're doing is we're breaking down those cell walls. So that rigid, fibery part of the plant, we're making it softer by doing this. And as we do that, the chlorophyll, which is what makes plants green, we're releasing the chlorophyll out. So I'll go ahead and hold this up because we're pretty much done. It only takes a few minutes, but you'll notice that it's turned a bright, vibrant green color. So it has changed colors from what it was originally. You probably can't see the difference between that, but if you have it in person, you can tell that it's a much brighter green. It's not the dusty, dark green that it was at the beginning. So not only has it changed a different color, it's condensed a little bit in volume, so you'll end up eating a little bit more. So anyways, that's how you massage your kale. And not only does it change colors, but it changes the texture. So it's much softer to eat. It won't be that woody texture. So doing this gets rid of all of that woodiness that you'd normally experience. And that's what I used to not like about kale. That's why I wouldn't eat it raw in a salad. But after I learned how to do this, I'm now a fan of having kale in salads. So I thanked my friend. I told her that I thought she was crazy at first for massaging her kale, but it really is a game changer. So if you're not worried about your family laughing at you, go ahead and get some kale and try it for yourself. It's a fun little experiment. But I just wanted to share that with y'all today to maybe give you an opportunity to try out a green that you don't normally that you don't normally have. So I'm going to set this to the side over here, and we are going to go back into our presentation for a few minutes. Okay, you should be able to see the PowerPoint again. So we've looked at our lettuce. Let's talk a little bit more about salad dressings. So there's two main categories of salad dressings. We have our oil-based, our oil and vinegar, typically called vinaigrettes, and then we have our creamy mayonnaise-based dressings, mayonnaise or dairy. So both of the dressings, what they have in common is it's a source of fat. And so you might have, seen low-fat versions of salad dressing, or you might be aware that, dressings like blue cheese or Thousand Island tend to be higher in fat and calories. But no, I wanted to tell you that not all fat in salad dressing is bad. So you do need a little bit of fat to help absorb those fat-soluble vitamins. So we mentioned vitamin A and vitamin K in our greens, and those are vitamins that your body absorbs with fat. So if you have no fat with your salad, you're not going to absorb all the vitamins from your greens. So having a little bit of fat is a good thing, but we do want it to be those heart-healthy fats. So let's talk a little bit more about dressings. Today we'll be making a homemade dressing that goes with our spring harvest salad. This is a plated up Kentucky Proud recipe that should be available at your extension office. Just ask your FCS agent. They should be able to provide you a card or direct you to where it is available online. But a benefit of making your own dressing is that you can really be creative with the flavors. So it's not just a preset thing. You can mix and match. You can do trial and error. You can make a little bit of one, and if you don't like it, try something else. So it's more customizable. You can also control the sodium. So I mentioned that some dressings are high in fat. They also tend to be high in sodium or salt, which we know if we're looking at our blood pressure, that's something that we kind of want to keep an eye on. So you have more control over what goes into your salad dressing if you make it at home. And overall, what your salad dressings are going to do is blend flavor in your salad. So it's going to be kind of helping mix things together. Okay, so let's talk about our mayonnaise-based dressings first. I gave you a few examples. Can anybody think of another example of a mayonnaise-based dressing, or maybe one that we've already said? Okay. Yeah, most coleslaw ones are mayonnaise-based. That's a great one. Our Caesar salad dressing, ranch, that might be buttermilk ranch. So that's probably more of a dairy-based one. But Thousand Island, blue cheese, those creamy, if you can't see through it, it's probably some type of mayonnaise-based dressing. You can purchase them refrigerated in the shelves near the produce section, or you can buy them just on the regular, pantry item aisle shelf. Those will have a different shelf life. So the ones that you purchase in the produce section that are already refrigerated are going to have a shorter shelf life than the ones that you would get on the regular shelf. So this is where I wanted to talk a little bit about matching your dressing with your greens. So with dressings, those thicker dressings that we're talking about, they tend to be heavier. So it would be a good idea to put those on a green that's a little more sturdy. Something like your romaine lettuce, something like your kale, something like your cabbage. Probably not the best idea to put them on spinach or arugula or those spring greens. Because if you think about it, the weight of that dressing is kind of going to bear down on the lettuce. So if it's already a wimpy lettuce, as we said, just not as strong of a lettuce, that heavy dressing is going to kind of push it down. And you'll see it, you've seen it condense down in the bowl where it gets too heavy. So just thinking about matching the weight of your green with the weight of your dressing. So we'll go ahead on to our next type. We have our vinaigrettes. So anything that's an oil plus a vinegar is a vinaigrette dressing. I wanted to point out a tool that I have at home that I love, and this is a dressing mixing bottle. You put a little rubber cap on, you can pull the top, keep it just set on your shelf. But you don't have to have something like this. You can find these at the dollar store. Or you can also use a jar. I mean, you can use a mason jar with a little mixer in it. You can use a bowl with a whisk. The options are endless. This just kind of makes it easy because you can mix and pour in the same bottle. So I just like to point that out. The acid, which is your vinegar, doesn't always have to be vinegar. So you could use red wine vinegar, you could use apple cider vinegar, balsamic vinegar is what we'll be using today. But you can also use juices like citrus juice, lemon juice, orange juice, and those other things that are acidic. And then, of course, herbs and spices. So this is where you get to be creative with your flavors, whatever you want to add. You can buy like a dry mix that's a salad dressing blend that you just pour that in and it's already made for you. Or you can get creative with your own spice cabinet and what's available inside. Okay, let's see. All right, so fun part, let's make a dressing. I have this slide here, y'all can't see it on there. So I'm gonna stop this share. Okay, Catherine said Simpson has 3 ladies watching. They are not fans of kale. So we'll see, maybe they'll try and massage their kale. I agree though, I was not a fan of kale. So I'm not sure, I honestly can't remember if I've sent out this recipe or not, but the spring harvest salad is a recipe. It's our plated up Kentucky Proud. We'll make the rest of the salad later, but I'm gonna go ahead and make the dressing since that's what we just talked about. So if you don't have it in front of you already, make sure you grab a copy at your extension office before you leave, have one printed off, or find it online. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a funnel. This is, if you're using one of these bottles, it's kind of something that you need just to make it a little bit less messy if you're anything like me, to get it all down in there. What we have is we're gonna start with our olive oil. We have 2.5 tablespoons of olive oil. And that's of course gonna be our heart healthy fat that we're adding into our dressing. Okay, we have our balsamic vinegar. This is obviously a darker colored balsamic. If you don't like that, you can swap it out for something different. So this is 1 tablespoon. You can always swap it for the red wine vinegar or apple cider vinegar. Or you'll see we're about to add lemon juice. You can always double up on the lemon juice or swap that for the vinegar as well. So I'll go ahead and pour in our 4 teaspoons of lemon juice. We get to use some Kentucky Proud honey in this recipe. So I am going to do my best and pour it in this way so it doesn't get all stuck in my funnel. If I do this without making a mess, I'll be super proud of myself. It would be a first for sure. I will give you a tip on measuring honey. I learned this way too late. I should have learned this years ago. If you spray your measuring spoon with cooking spray or spray your little bowl with cooking spray and then put the honey in, it slides out like a charm. You don't have to be scraping and trying so hard to get that honey out. So just a little tip that makes life a little bit easier. We have a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So, I mean, it's okay to add a little salt for flavor. That's totally fine, but I like it that we get to control the amount that we're using instead of having it predetermined for us. And then finally, the last time I made this, I learned that Dijon mustard does not go well in a funnel. So I'm just gonna spoon this in by myself. This is 1.5 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. If you had a different kind of mustard on hand, it would probably work out just fine, but we'll do what the recipe calls for today. So this is the fun part where you get to be just a little bit messy. All right. Has anybody ever made their own salad dressing before? We have one, our assistant Nancy Owens has made a salad dressing before. There's several that are, there's several available in that public meeting. You should have, but then also the crowd is having recipes. They have the dressing, recipe that's included with it. You can always make that dressing, and if you like it, you can on other salads as well. The one that you made. All right, so that is as simple as it gets. What we're gonna do, I'm gonna clean off some of this extra mustard. With our top line. I'm going to turn this upside down so we can get to this mustard out of the top of my sit here a while to settle out. Take before you're ready to serve. But I love this bottle. Like I said, you can mix it right in the same thing. Much. So if you don't like it, hey, no big deal. You tried something new, what else next time? Now do this one. We have our dressing ready to go. So now for the fun part, we talked about the base. So we talked about the greens, what we start out with. We talked about the dressing, what we put on top. But let's talk a little bit more about everything else that we put on our salads. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, we have made our dressing. Now let's talk about building our salad. So this is when I think about building a salad, I think about adding as much variety, as much color as possible. So, add, somebody have a question or I'm going to keep going now. So with our toppings, not only is adding types of toppings going to make it visually appealing and look a little bit more exciting when you go to eat your salad, but it's also going to make it more nutritious. So if you're anything like me, you probably had a salad before and you thought, oh, you know, I just ate such a healthy meal. I feel so good about myself. And an hour later, you're like, I'm hungry. I don't think I'm full. So that's definitely a big thing that happens a lot. You'll have that salad with maybe just the greens and, you know.
Kelly, we've lost your sound.
Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know. I still have my mic.
It's like you're standing in the middle of traffic.
I think someone is not muted. Could everybody please check and make sure you are on mute? If you're on your phone, please make sure it's still muted.
I might be able to, I think I can mute everyone. If y'all don't mind, I'll just hit mute all, that way we take care of it. And then if, you know, feel free to unmute. Feel free to unmute if you want to. Let's see. Okay, let's try that. How's that volume? Is that a little bit better? Okay, Christy said better. Okay, hopefully that's good. All right, if I don't hear, let me know. Go ahead and just shout out if you get to the point where you can't hear again. But hopefully that's a little bit better now. I'm gonna go back to my screen share. All right, so yeah, I can hear better than I can see the chat. So if you have something, if it gets bad again, just say something out loud if you can. So with our salads, I was talking about how we probably all had a salad and then an hour later been hungry again. Well, something that I learned that I think is a really good, easy rule of thumb is that if we're thinking about a meal, what makes a meal a meal? A meal is a meal because we have at least 3 food groups included. So we have either a vegetable, a fruit, a carbohydrate, a protein, or dairy. So those are our 5 food groups. So if we think about just the base of our salad, so far we have 1. We have our vegetables, but to really make it a meal or something that's a little bit more sustainable or that's going to keep us feeling full longer, we need to think about adding at least 2 other food groups to our salad. So we can do that in a lot of ways. When we add color, I think of other colorful things like fruits and vegetables. So you can add other vegetables, you can add peppers, you see strawberries and blueberries here, grapes, apples, you know, anything that's gonna give it more color. It's probably gonna increase the fiber, increase the vitamins, and might even give you some carbohydrates in that fruit if you choose to add fruit. I also think about contrast, so the textures. We don't want everything to be all the same. Everybody likes a little bit of crispy or crunchy something on top. The most common example of that probably is croutons. So I just picked these up as an example. I knew I used to love croutons as a child. So croutons is a way we can have a crunch. Also, we can do nuts, we can do seeds. There's other things like that we can add that have a crunch as well, or even some fruits, might give it a little bit of a crunch. We also want to add either a protein or a whole grain or both. So some examples of proteins would be things like chicken, tuna. Our nuts and seeds can count as protein. So think about adding those types of things. And then a couple other just stuff I had out was quinoa. I don't know if anyone's heard of quinoa before. You use it like a grain, but it's actually a seed technically. But it's a good substitute for brown rice. So you pretty much cook it the same way. You can use it the same way. It doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own, so it'll pick up whatever flavor you put it with. But this is a great way to add protein and whole grains to your salad as well. And then we've talked some about fresh fruit, but there's also dried fruit. So things like raisins or craisins or dried cranberries. If it's not the season for fresh fruit, those are great options as well. So that's just kind of an overview of some things that you could add to your salad. I'll remind you again about that grid resource. I see a few of y'all have it out that kind of shows the different categories of things that you can mix and match on your salad. Okay, let's try and switch slides. So this slide talks a little bit more about protein. I've talked a little bit about meat proteins, but we can also use non-meat sources of protein. Who likes hard-boiled eggs on their salad? That's something that gives your salad a little bit more staying power in your stomach. Also something like garbanzo beans or chickpeas or black beans. With proteins, honestly, I like to open up my refrigerator, and if I have any kind of leftovers, chop it up in little pieces and put it on that salad. It's a great way to get rid of something that's maybe not quite enough for another serving of a dinner type of meal, but it gives you more than just having the greens alone, and it ups that protein group in your salad. So clean out your refrigerator, see what kind of protein you can find, whether it's meat or vegetarian. They all add good nutrition to your salad. Cheese, yeah, I haven't talked about dairy yet. So cheese is a good protein and fat together type thing. You can do shredded cheese. Today we actually have feta. If anyone has used this before, it's common in Greek types of food. Feta cheese is really awesome. So yeah, we can add that as well. So a few other popular additions just to touch on. In your publication, you'll see avocados. So I didn't know this, but sometimes they're called alligator pears. So I can kind of see why, kind of like a pear shape, but a little bit bumpy on it. A serving is about 1/3 of an avocado. So you can make 3 salads out of your avocado and have that serving of healthy fat. It's called monounsaturated fat, which is a long word, but that just means that it's the healthy type of fat that we want to eat. Okay. We also have nuts and seeds. So we've talked about this a little bit already, how we can add nuts and seeds for protein and other healthy fats. But I had an idea that I just wanted to share. If you don't have a jar of nuts or, a whole separate thing of seeds, a lot of people like trail mix. So if you have some trail mix sitting around, throw a little bit of that on. You might get some nuts, some raisins, all kinds of different things. If it's the kind with M&Ms, you might have to pick those out. But if it's a nuts and seed type of trail mix, even if it has pretzels or, other little crunchy things like the tortilla strips or something like that in there, throw a little bit of that on there. Salads are just kind of a good catch-all for any leftovers in your fridge or pantry. And then whole grains. So we've talked a little bit about whole grains already. We looked at some quinoa. You can also do couscous. I'll be honest, I've never cooked couscous, but from my understanding, you can use it kind of the same way. It's a grain that can be a base that you can add a sauce or, other meat and vegetables on top, or you can put that on top of your greens. So when I think about these grains, it makes me think a little bit about like grain bowls or power bowls that you might have seen on restaurant menus, a greens bowl, a protein bowl, power bowl. So, we can make this on our own by simply adding some whole grains to our salads. Those grains are important because they help give your body energy throughout the day. So those carbohydrates is what we need. That's our quick energy source that our body's going to use. Okay, so I think that's my last main slide on here. So I have on here, let's make a salad. So this is what we've all been waiting for. And I did want to just show the references that go with this as well. So I will stop my share. And I see a chat. Okay, Catherine said volume much better. Awesome. Okay, perfect. I'm glad that was all that it was that took care of it. So this salad calls for a mix of 2 different kinds of greens. So one of them I already have ripped up. I have our spinach. It's 2.5 cups of spinach. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the bowl. And then this is going to take me a few minutes. So this will be a good time to look over your things or ask any questions. Where you have 5 cups of this leaf lettuce, so our spring leaf lettuce. Yes, great question. So this is the spring harvest salad recipe. And the reason why I chose this is because, as you'll see in just a moment, we're going to top it with strawberries and blueberries, which are also going to be available pretty soon. So those are some of our more spring types of fruits that we have in Kentucky. Actually, there's a local strawberry farm that I like to go pick strawberries at. And I saw that they posted recently that their patch is probably about 10 days away from opening. So strawberries are just around the corner. You might have some at a farmer's market that have been grown in a high tunnel or some other kind of extended growing season greenhouse. So you might be able to find some local strawberries sooner than later. But even if you can't find them at a local farmer's market, you can probably find them on sale at your local grocery store. That's the good thing about in-season produce is it's usually available for a smaller price than it can be at other times of the year. So excuse me while I rip up just a little bit more of our leaf lettuce here. But take this chance to look over those publications or agents on Zoom if you want to unmute if anyone has questions while I finish this little part. I did not think about adding arugula, but I could. That would be a great addition. And I mean, just because this calls for these certain types of greens, if you don't like spinach or if you don't have the green leaf lettuce, you don't have to do that. You can substitute whatever kinds of greens you want. It might taste a little different if you did kale, for example, not in a bad way unless you don't like kale. But yes, so this calls for some of those softer greens. So you could add arugula if you like that little peppery taste. Since we're adding fruit and this is a little sweeter, that arugula might give it a contrast like we were talking about, just something a little bit different. So I'll give a couple other ideas while I'm doing this for your homemaker clubs. Of course, we're not encouraging potlucks at this point still due to COVID, but a couple of ideas that I had, I thought, well, how can we still let this be interactive and fun, you know, if we are having a club meeting? One thing I thought of was that everyone could bring a different type of green. So you could have members or if you're the club lesson leader, you could bring a few different kinds of greens and have kind of not a show and tell, but a little bit of something visual to look at. You could bring different kinds of greens with you on your club meeting. You could also, I thought about those salad kits. You know, you could have everybody bring a salad kit. It's all prepackaged, it's all closed up. You could swap them if you want to, if you wanted to do that. Or even salad dressings. So, you know, maybe everybody look in their refrigerator and see what kind of salad dressing they have and just bring it and do a little show and tell. Or you could take a chance to look at the nutrition label on. Yeah, we had someone in Allen County said that she likes the Olive Garden salad dressing, which is so good. And now they have it like in the normal grocery store. So I thought that could be a fun activity as well. You know, maybe everybody bring a salad dressing that they already have at home and just take a chance to look at that nutrition label and see, you know, decide if you think it's a vinaigrette dressing or a mayonnaise-based dressing, and then take a chance to compare those ingredient labels. So just kind of some little show and tell type things that we could do at our club meetings without having to actually cook together. But it would be fun to follow up the next month and see, hey, did anybody, try a new salad topping that you haven't had before, or kind of share your experiences after maybe people have tried some different types of salads. So, okay, this is about 5 cups of our greens. So I'm going to stop at that and just toss it a little bit. Sorry. Oh yeah, I don't think my bowl's big enough to add the kale. We have a 1/2 cup of green onions. So these have just already been sliced up. This gives this salad kind of an interesting little flair in amongst the sweetness of our fruits. So we'll just go ahead and mix those through with our hands. Of course, you want to make sure you wash your hands first, as we've done. So we've mixed in our green onions, and then the rest is very simple. I have strawberries, 1.5 cups of sliced strawberries. I like to slice them up in these little rounds for a salad just because I think it looks pretty. You can sprinkle them around, and I feel like those pieces are a little bit lighter weight too. So kind of like how we said, we don't want a super heavy dressing to mash down our lettuce. I think if we cut our fruit up into a little bit smaller pieces, that'll keep it from mashing down that lettuce as well. Okay, so we have our strawberries, and I know that the people on Zoom are probably having a little trouble. Oh, you can see pretty well on there. So we have our strawberries. We have 1 cup of blueberries. I was able to find these for a pretty good price at the grocery store. Whoops, I had one that escaped onto the floor. We'll just let him go. It's not fun unless you have a few runaway pieces of fruit in the mix. Okay, so we just go ahead and mix that in. And then our 2 toppings, we have a 1/2 cup of sliced almonds or slivered almonds. If you don't have almonds, I think pecans would be really good on this too. Walnuts, if you have nuts that you keep in the freezer, just get out whatever you have. The almonds go well with this recipe, but you don't have to have almonds. And then a 1/4 cup of feta cheese. So if you don't like feta, you could do some shredded lower fat mozzarella. That would be really good too. But I think the feta gives it a good taste if you like the flavor of feta cheese. And then finally, I'm gonna wipe my hands off just a little bit, and we will top it with our dressing. So the last time I made this salad, I actually didn't even use all of the dressing that I made. You can kind of use your judgment. If you think that you might not eat the whole salad at the same time, you could wait and just have each person dress it themselves before they eat it so it doesn't wilt and get, too liquidy and soft. But I wish that you could all see it in person, but this is a really pretty salad. So I have some tongs here. I'm going to toss it a little bit more to maybe get some of those strawberries up on top so that y'all can see. But this is a great one to make this time of year or anytime. We get to use several of those different greens. We've added fruit, we've added protein. So this would constitute a good meal. However, if you wanted more, you could add quinoa, you could add chicken, you could add salmon if you have some left over. I mean, anything that you really want. This is a great base salad to have for lunch, or you could have it by itself, have it with other things. So that's really most of what I had for today. I've kept y'all for a pretty long time. But does anyone have questions? I'll hang on for a few more minutes. If anybody has questions about what they could do, how you can do this with your club, some other interactive fun ideas for things you could talk about or do together. But I wanted to thank you all for joining me today. And I hope that this is a fun May lesson that you can do with your club leaders. So let me know if y'all have any questions at all. There is a follow-up evaluation that comes with this. I've not sent it out yet. I'll get that to your agents so that you can follow up with the evaluation later on if you're able to. So I'll stop talking for a minute. You're free to go if you don't have any questions, or I'm happy to stay on and answer questions for as long as people have. So thank you so much, and y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day.